Today, we are so lucky that Marissa Buss is joining us. Thank you so much for being here, Marissa.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, so great. So, I want to really talk about your journey because you have several things going on in your life, career wise. And then, of course, you're also a wife and a mom and very, very involved in the community. So, I'm so excited to dive deep in this episode and explore your journey and how you've navigated your path up until now. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about how you got started in your career after you graduated college?
Um, okay. Well, I actually started my career when I was in college.
Well, there you go.
So I was managing fine dining restaurants in Calabasas. Some of you
Okay.
may have remembered way back in the day when Nick Lachey and Jessica, forgetting her name now,
Simpson, I will never
Simpson,
forget.
yeah, used to have their little show, and they used to come into this restaurant called Finn's, and the Kardashians used to come in. So I used to manage this restaurant, and my regular was it was in the real estate boom when I was working there, and one of my regulars kept harassing me to get into real estate, and I had come home from Cal State Long Beach to redo my film portfolio to go back to an art school and be a documentary filmmaker. And so I was working in this restaurant at the time. And so there was a lot of high profile like business people that came in and persuaded me that I wouldn't make any money in documentary filmmaking and that I should come work in real estate. So I ended up working in commercial real estate with one of the regulars. And I worked with him from 2006 to 2009. So through the Great Recession, kind of saw the writing on the walls, commercial lags a year after, and that's when I moved into residential. Meanwhile, I'd moved into going to business school at Pepperdine at night. So I was going to school at full time at night and on the weekends, and then working full time in commercial real estate when I transferred over from the restaurant. So
That's
it
a
was
great
kind of,
start. And I love that these opportunities presented themselves. You were open to pivoting because I think so much of career growth is allowing yourself to pivot if needed.
yeah,
Um, but then the hustle of working all day long and going to school at night, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, men or women, start out that way. I remember when I started my own business, it was after I worked in the schools all day and then also on the weekends until you're able to, make that jump. So
yeah,
I know you work with your husband. You
yes,
guys. So where was he? Was he around yet? Like I know you guys know
yeah.
each other. So Marissa and her husband know each other from high school.
Yeah, we did not date in high school, and I would have laughed if you had told me I was going to marry Danny Lampert when I was in high school, and I think he would have laughed too. If someone had said that we were going to get married. So Danny had gotten back from the military. He was an Air Force firefighter, and so he came back, and Danny Lampert had grown up, and I was like, wow, look at and he had become a federal firefighter as a civilian, and so I was like this is like I was impressed that he was young and had a career and was, focused on that because a lot of well, mind you, we were 22 years old. So at 22 to have known what you wanted to be and to be moving forward towards it to me was very impressive. So we rekindled through TGI Fridays back when that was around. People used to hang out there. And so we started dating. We were actually engaged when I went over into commercial real estate.
Okay.
And so Danny then became a got on Oxnard Fire Department, and he's had his journey, and now he's a fire captain. And then we had our two kids and all that. And when he used to watch the kids at home on his days off, and I would go work residential real estate in the office then. And so when the kids were in preschool and he didn't need to be home with them anymore, he's like, well, what am I going to do? I only work at that time, he was working uh, 10 days a month. plus overtimes. And he's like, I want to do something else. And I was like, well, do you want to do construction with your dad, or do you want to come work residential real estate with me? And he was like, I'll come work residential with you. I said, okay, great. So for the last 6 years, he has worked full time at the fire department and full time in residential real estate with me.
Okay, there's so much to uncover just from what you just said. So let's back up to when you guys got married at what age?
He was 24 and I was 25.
Okay, so I got married at 25. I'm going to throw it out there. I think these days, super young to get married, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I met my husband at 21. So I joke around that we were infants when we met. I mean, I don't even know if that's a joke. I think that's kind of true. Like, what the hell do you know at 21?
Well, the lobe isn't even fully developed until you're 25.
That's
so it's
literally
like
what I was just about to say. I was like, you're not even fully functioning, like your brain's not fully developed. So we meet at this age, we get married at 25. We think we're like, oh, we're grown-ups. We just got married. We're gonna start our life. And it's like jokes on you. So to be married so young and then to go on that journey of like finding out who the hell you are together, I think is wild. So many people are like, that's so nice that you met so young. And I'm like, do you know how hard it is to develop as a human and try to correlate that with somebody else's growth as a human and stay on that path? So
yeah, for sure. And Danny, from where we met, I mean, I had been working in restaurants and then working in sales. And so being in residential real estate, you are exposed to a lot of personal development. And so I had a personal coach for 8 years in residential real estate. So I worked on personal development a lot. Danny being a military firefighter to a firefighter on a military base to a firefighter for a city, they don't work on personal development. So when he got into residential real estate with me, I was always going to these seminars and he would be watching the kids. He then came with me in these seminars, and I introduced him to a book that I think is phenomenal for people who are not open-minded to personal development. And so it's called Unshakable by Tony Robbins. And it goes over the financial crash. And it's actually talking about how, like, just your common person who has a 401k and what have you. And it just explains like how you can protect yourself for the next time. But at the end of it, the very last chapter, because it goes over all your financial, like what you need to watch out for and all this stuff, it talks about that none of that matters if you don't choose to live in a beautiful state. And my husband, who was a military firefighter, like, I mean, just like not super exposed to like any of this stuff, found that chapter to be the most life-changing thing he had ever read. And he's like, at the fire station, we are grumpy. We come home and we say we want to be home, but we're just jerks and we're tired and we use any excuse because of what we've had to deal with and what we see. And there's no personal development at the fire station, right? You see a horrible call, you go to counseling. And Danny's always been like, I don't want to talk about it again.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that from others.
So it's like this whole thing, like where a lot of them get PTSD and stuff like that. So Danny really like was like, what is this? And so he has a very addictive personality, and he took Tony Robbins to like a whole nother level and just became obsessed with him. And he turned his car into an auto university. And that man has read more personal development books than I have in my 16 years in residential, because I mean, some people see his Instagram posts, his Facebook. He does Danny's dailies where he has his positive quotes. He's committed to living in a beautiful state. We check each other, if we have those moments of where we say, oh, you're a little grumpy today, huh? That's our way of saying you're acting like a total bitch, or, you're being a total jerk. And then, you can check yourself, because we are committed to living in a beautiful state, which is not being anxious, not having stress, and, not being angry about things, but trying to live in a more productive state, which is being at peace, zen, positivity.
So that sounds beautiful and amazing, but we can't pretend that's easy. So how did you guys?
It's been years of transformation, and every single day, my husband.
Do you feel like that's a daily choice? That's
100%
every single day, right? Like,
and it's not just a choice; it's a practice. So, like, I do. We have a mindset text group, right? Where we talk about what physical activity we did. You have to like check in and you say, like, what did I do today? Did I meditate? Did I write out my goals? Did I write out affirmations? Did I do a breathing practice? Did I like just all different things that are basically all about you working on yourself? And I think that's one of the hardest things as a woman who works and is a mother or just a mother, period. It's hard to do anything for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But being, on this thread, it keeps me more accountable than I would be on my own. And that's one of the biggest things is accountability.
I love that. I think for me, what motivated me to even start this podcast and start this journey is working with women where they're kind of lost in that, right? Like I'm a speech pathologist by trade, and then I became a business owner. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then I showed up in a way that made me not like how I was showing up. And it was getting into that practice of self-reflection and what I needed for self-care that allowed me to grow and develop as a boss, a wife, a mom, a human, most importantly. That I think allows us to improve in every aspect of our life. And like you, I pulled my husband into my career. He was doing something completely different and ended up joining me. So then we aligned kind of like you and Danny did. But you were talking about how when Danny was still working full time, he would come home and you would go to work.
Yeah.
So that sounds hard. When did you guys find to connect?
That was literally when we were in the thick of it, one of the hardest points, because being a commercial real estate agent and making six figures the first year of our marriage to going to making $7,000 the next year was a huge, huge adjustment, right? You marry this woman who you thought had this great career and then it tanks. And I had to go through years of rebuilding it. And, he sat by my side. He never once faulted me for, decisions I made where I thought, oh, if I spend this, it will lead to this or what have you. Like he never, ever, like he was just there and he did whatever he had to do. Like he worked construction on the days he was off. I mean, we hustled through it, and it was very, very difficult to go through being, I mean, literally the second year of marriage. So, and then, the financial crisis like happened, and then I really wanted to have a baby. So once I got into residential real estate and felt that I like could I was tracking ground and making things work, that's when I decided that, like we're going to have a baby. But yeah, so he would, in Georgia, first mother, right? Like first time being a mom. So you're so like worried about nipple confusion and all these things. So she wouldn't take a bottle. So you have this man coming home from the fire station who may or may not have slept, taking over an infant. And I remember my mother saying to me one day, "You're leaving your baby with him?" And I'm like, "Mom, he's actually an EMT and CPR certified. Like he probably is."
Father.
What, and he's the dad, like, but she was just like, because she didn't work until I was 6 years old. So she had stayed home with all of her children. So she was just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so he, I think that time though, that with Georgia, because Georgia was so obsessed with me, was the only time that she would pay attention to him. So, that was, those special moments that
When
they had.
did you guys find time to talk and connect?
Then you don't.
Okay.
No, and it's such a falsehood. And people like, I'm always like, you're in the thick of it. Like, just get through these years while the kids are little, and it changes so much. So much once your youngest is like 4.
It does. It does. The first years are really hard, but you're also young, newly married, growing a business. So you guys must have felt challenged and disconnected and overwhelmed. So what did you guys do?
So we would do a lot of we had both flexible jobs, right? Because firefighters work all weird days and then they have like chunks of time off. So as we, paid off a lot of debt and got ourselves back into a financial position where we like had a little extra money, that's when we would like do these little weekend trips or, weekday trips, because it didn't matter when I worked 24/7. So we would like drive, and then then the kids, like Georgia would nap, and then we would have those times where we would get a hotel room that like had a little ocean view, and like Georgia would nap, and we would sit on the balcony and drink a bottle of wine together or whatever. And so those, I would try to book those like at least once a quarter. And so that was really like when things were able to slow down, was on the drive there. And then during nap time,
Yeah.
when she was, because I usually would fall asleep when she would, because I can't stay up late. So there was no like hanging out late night.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. It's beautiful to see the challenge at the beginning and then that persistence and just staying the course, because there's so many moments in that where it's easier to go get a 9 to 5 and a guaranteed
Yeah.
paycheck. It's really, really hard to
Well, I tried that actually. I
that.
have a business degree from Pepperdine, and in the recession, the job interviews that I got were for Enterprise Rent-A-Car to be a manager and Northwestern Mutual to sell life insurance. And I'm like, I'll go bartend. I will go bartend until I get through this. And luckily in residential, it's a lot easier and faster to grow your business. And I was at the office at 7 a.m. I came home at 7 p.m. And it's like I just hustled. I did everything I possibly could. Anybody said, you do this. I mean, I door knocked 8 months pregnant. Like I was like, whatever it takes. Like I need to make money. I cannot live not making money. And so it only took me 2 years to get over 6 figures, and I've never looked back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk to everybody about your why. What drives you to achieve what you've achieved and to keep going on your journey?
I think when I was younger, my why was that I felt I had something to prove.
Okay.
And as now, I turned 40 this year.
Wow.
And
Hey,
I
I'm
think
a few months away.
I know it's interesting, like, being in your 20s and then being in your 30s. And now, like, I think, my husband and I say, like, our 40s are just gonna be like phenomenal.
I
Um,
thought I would never want to hit 40. And now I'm just
yeah,
like, oh my God, thank God the 30s are done, because it was just challenging growth and
yes.
pandemic. Like,
In the 20s, you don't know what you're doing, but you think you do.
oh, 20s, like,
They're an extension of like high school, but
they're,
like you have to pay your own bills and think that you're figuring it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, so when I was younger, I had something to prove. I definitely like had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I definitely wanted to, my ego, I was more ego focused for sure. And so now I have more self-confidence in myself. And it's more now about, I want to see what I can do.
yeah.
Like, let's stop like playing, and like let's really put ourselves out there. And I have enough confidence now where it's like, if I fail at it, I fail at it. I'm going to learn something from it no matter what. But if I don't try, I'll never know. And I'd rather try and fail than not have tried at all.
I love it, because not trying, I think, is the biggest risk.
It's failure. That is failure, is not
It's
trying.
like if you don't ask. I talk about this all the time. I teach my kids. I'm a straight shooter. I'm in areas. I'm just plow
Yeah.
through. My husband's a lot more reserved. I'm like, listen, guys, if you don't ask,
Yep.
the
You
answer
don't
is
know.
already no. You
Yep.
ask and the answer is no, so what? You're in the same position, but like you have to try. You have to go. You have to push through the fear. I heard such a good analogy the other day about buffalo, that as a species, they hate water. So they do whatever they want to avoid water. So if they see a storm cloud coming, they run towards it, because they know if they run towards the storm, they're going to get through it faster. Where if they
Hmm.
run away from the storm, it will catch up and then they're running in the storm. And I was like, that's so good.
Yeah. I love that.
It's kind of how you just have to like go head on through life. Have you,
Yeah.
woman, ever dealt with imposter syndrome?
Like, like, what do you mean? Like trying to be something that I'm not?
No,
Basically?
like feeling like you're not showing up as you're pretending to be something you're not. You're pretending to know something you don't, but you show up anyways. So I love that you know
I
this
mean,
I love that you haven't had this as a regular part of your career experience, where women talk all the time how men really don't deal with imposter syndrome. They're just who they are and they show up and that's it. And they're confident, where women show up but think in their head, should I be here? Do I really know enough? Am I good enough for this?
oh, I think so. I think having been in residential sales and going to massive, I mean, like 5,000 person seminars and seeing grown men talk about how, when you're in the beginning of your career in real estate, which is a huge, I mean, you're dealing with rejection constantly. Okay. Residential real estate agents don't have like the best reputation. Okay. They've literally been listed like in the bottom 10 of most hated, like,
Really?
career. Oh yeah, there was this like Forbes that came out when Danny and I were younger, and it was like firefighter was like most loved career, right? Like, or person, whatever, and it was like residential real estate agent, like
Okay,
down here.
tumbled.
Yeah. So I think it's that I honestly, yes, there may be some men that are so arrogant, just like there are women who don't, but having gone to these residential real estate seminars and seeing grown men talk about how, like, look, you fake it till you make it. I mean, I literally was in one of my worst financial positions ever when I went into residential, and it was 2010. Okay. Everybody's houses were down 30%. Nobody wanted to talk to you about real estate because they were short selling their home, foreclosing. I mean, it was tough. And I was driving my Honda Accord, and I used to literally chant to myself because I had to pretend to be someone that I did not have the confidence to be. I am a money magnet. I am a listing magnet. And to this day, we have a text chain with my new agents, and I'll put in my affirmations and I'll say, my listings sell easily. My buyers always get into escrow. I am a listing magnet. Sellers need my help. So I think it's hard because in real estate, like, if you want to be successful in it, you 100% are pretending to be something that you do not always feel that you are. And being a young agent in real estate, which always cracks me up, and literally people who have been in the business now 30, 40 years will say, oh, you listed with Marissa, she's new. I'm like, new, I've been here 16 years. But because you've been here 40, as long as I've been alive, I'm new. Like, so I think that no, oh, 100%. Like, you have to fake it till you make it. I mean, I'm sitting here running a campaign. I have no freaking clue what I'm doing, and
You
we'll
just do
see.
it, right? And that's how you learn. You can't know before you're in it.
No.
It's from being in it that you learn. I mean, launching this podcast, I was like, me? I have a business coach. So I really think anyone in business trying to move forward has a business coach. My coach has a coach. I think you mentioned
Yes.
coach. I think you need
Always.
to have that sounding board. And when I told her what I wanted to do and how I wanted to connect and work with women, she said, well, you need to start with the podcast. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
So I just hit record, and you learn as you go, and
Yeah.
you hope it's okay. And I have so many new therapists that work in our clinic. Like you say, you have a young team, and like, guys, you got to fake it till you make it. You have to sit
Yes.
in front of whoever you're working with and present confident. And then afterwards, go learn what you need to learn, or learn as you
Yeah.
do.
And I think that men do the same. I mean,
Maybe they just
I
don't think about it.
100% they do. Like,
Them up.
they don't know what they're doing. I mean, nobody does. I mean, they always say it's like 5 years to mastery, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. My mom used to always tell me, like, it's however many hours, which equals out to 5 years for mastery. So, your first 5 years while you're trying to become a residential real estate agent, you're 100% acting like you know how to do something that you don't. I
Yeah.
mean, you haven't done, I mean, maybe you've bought and sold your own house, but it's a little different than representing someone else.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that that's like, if someone says they just are so confident, what have you, this bull.
There's no way. I remember graduating grad school and they said, we just gave you a degree so you can go learn. And you're not going to feel like you know anything for 5 years. And I thought, but oh my
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
5 years. I was so fast.
Yeah.
I
No,
been doing what I'm doing. I can't believe the numbers coming out of my mouth.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's wild. But yeah, I think Like you said, you fake it till you make it and you show up every day. Okay, so you've hit on a lot. You've hit on your why. Well, what's your why now? You hit on your why back then.
Well, my why now is like just to see, I want to see what I can do. That's basically it. It's like I have this little like I every year I do a business plan and I write a letter to myself coming from New Year's Eve the year before, right? So right now I'll write my letter from 2023 New Year's Eve to myself of what I've accomplished. And then I'll make like a vision board of things that I want.
So you have a lot of things in play here.
You have to. You have
Yeah.
to because there's so real estate is a very simple business. Extremely simple, but it's not easy.
Oh,
That you go through and if
say that
you
again.
want to
You froze for a second. So you said it's not easy and then you froze. So
I said it's not easy, but but oh no, I said it's not simple. It's simple, it's not easy.
yeah,
And that you deal with like so much rejection in it that if you don't emotionally tie what you want to accomplish, it's easy to give up because I have
rejection
no
is
boss.
so hard.
Yeah,
Rejection so hard on the ego.
yeah. I mean, and it's constant. Like I have people who don't list with me and they're my friends. And then it's like, what am I gonna not be your friend? That's stupid. Like that's
Yeah,
not why I'm your friend, is to list your house. I'm friends with you because I like you, right?
yeah.
And the reality of it is that a lot of times people have come back to me and been like, I had a horrible experience that time. I'm gonna list with you. I just whatever, didn't want to mix
I will say
business and
it's
friends.
really hard to pick a realtor because it feels
Yeah.
like there's always several in your life. And you're
Oh,
going,
everyone has a license. It's 100 questions.
and
It's not
so
that
you're,
hard.
who am I gonna hurt, not hurt? It's really hard to pick a realtor.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that people downgrade in their lives, right? Like they don't look at it as big of a deal. I'm like, you're literally selling your largest financial asset, yet you'll use your best friend who just got her license. Would you use her to have surgery on you if she just became a doctor?
Yeah. Yeah.
No. And
Yeah.
this is what they don't get. And I'm like, okay. Like I just lost a deal. They emailed me, said, hey, we were considering to list with you, but we decided to go with this other agent. I look her up because I didn't know her and I pretty much know most people's names out here. And I'm like, she literally hasn't sold a house in 2 years in the hottest real estate market. And you're listing your property with her. I think I'm only saying this to you because I do consider you a friend. I really think you should reconsider. And they're like, oh, we already listed. We think it's great. They overpriced it by 300,000. They're sitting.
And they'll learn. I it's so many so many thoughts. I think it's wild how different industries can be so completely targeted in a different way. But so much of the same stuff is happening. I think especially post-pandemic, work ethic has changed, like if we're going to be really honest. And creating a team, having people want to show up for you. There's this huge push towards not encouraging people to do that or to go on their own or to not have to subscribe to certain hours. So you see a lot of younger people in the field going out on their own. When I look back, when I started my career, and I would never have thought that I could go
Yeah.
out on my own without guidance, right?
Yeah. Mentorship is huge. And
Yeah.
I agree with that in residential. I mean, people get their license and then they're out there, selling real estate and they're not being mentored. And I just think it's crazy because you have so much liability and you are a fiduciary to your client. And so I have seen it so many times where I'm like, oh, you need to pay your mortgage. That's why you're pushing for things that you shouldn't be for your client. And it's like, you
It's,
just
it's
don't
scary.
know.
We never intended this. We've gotten really lucky, and I think it's helped us to be able to do what we do with our business. But buying our homes and selling, we've always been able to profit and get
Yeah.
into the next type of home. And I mean, I think real estate for us has been a life savior. I mean, would we eventually
Yeah.
love to go buy another house and be able to keep this house and rent it out and or have a
Yeah.
second? Yeah, ideally. But I owning a business does not mean you have a ton of money. So
No.
our ability to change our circumstances and where we live and where our kids go to school has been through the sell of
Yeah.
foreign.
Well, and that has been easy to do since 2010, which was the low, up until now, which is a transitioning market because the market has only gone up
Yeah.
over the
Well, and
last
now's a
12
really
years.
challenging time. We were looking at, we have a 3-bedroom house right now. We love our neighborhood though. We don't want to leave it. And my mom got hurt about a month and a half ago, and she had to stay here, and we didn't have a bedroom for her. And
Yeah.
I thought, hell no, this is not my forever home. Like, I need more rooms. And it was a big
Yeah.
wake. My siblings don't live in California, where so then we started kind of like peeking around, and interest rates are crazy right now. So put a halt on that
Yeah.
for.
They doubled since they literally have doubled, over doubled since June.
Well, and buying a house as a business owner isn't necessarily the easiest thing.
Nope.
So our interest rates are even a little bit higher, especially because my husband's only been with the business for like 2 years or 2.5 years. So it's challenging. It's definitely a challenging time. So I can imagine, and I'm always watching real estate where we
Yeah.
live.
Most people are. Most people
How
like
many
no
houses
matter
are in the
what, no
neighborhood
matter.
right now? I feel like there's really a stall in how many houses are being listed.
Yeah. Well, because what you're getting rid of, and so like over the last 2 years, what we saw was a lot of people moving because their houses were worth a lot more money. And so then they could get into something else. So you're going into a market where it's going to be your event seller, right? You know, someone whose death, had a baby, relocation, just got married, you know, buying your first home. It's going to be more of those instead of just like, hey, I want a fourth bedroom.
Right.
But do you want your payment to double for that fourth bedroom?
It was
No.
like a triple in our payment.
Yeah. So you're like, it's like, nah, I
Yeah,
think we're good.
that's exactly what we did. We said, nah, we're good. So when you guys go through that, being in real estate, I mean, I guess it's Danny has his other job, so that's
Hmm.
helpful. But when there's a high and then there's a low, what do you do with that? How do you emotionally manage that?
Well, one thing about real estate is that most real estate agents are not, they don't treat it like a business. It's a lifestyle entrepreneurship, right? So they don't make business plans. They kind of just sell whatever happens, and kind of flounder through things. So because I was in that business coaching for 8 years, I'm very regimented in my business. And so when I want to turn it on, like 2019, I was like kind of burnt out. I really wanted to like participate with the kids more, did PTA. I started another business, like started getting into charity work and different things, and taking a little more time for me rather than just like hardcore pushing.
Hmm.
And so, but then at the end of it, I was like, okay, I want to make more money now. So then I just implement what I know, and bam, like so it's a 90-day cycle. I know what to do. And I think because I've done it for so long, I turn it on or turn it off depending on what how much I want to make. So in
Okay.
this market, it's actually great for people like me where 30% of the agents are going to leave and get some little job because they don't really need to make as much money. A lot of people are part-time. So for me, okay, great. Well, I will go in there and then I'll end up taking more deals
How do
because
you
there'll be
motivate
less
your
people.
team though, if they haven't, you told me you were working with people that are younger and newer to real estate. So if they have different circumstances or need money and don't have the same setup, how do you
So
motivate
I
them?
won't I won't take on a team member that does not have a other income to support their life, because this is not a business that you can really do that
Okay.
in until you're established. And so for me though, because my time is valuable, right? I don't have a ton of it. So I'm not going to take on someone who can't support themselves through a year to 2 years, because that's not I don't have enough time for them, right? There's
Find young
other
people that
brokerages who
can do
will.
that.
Hmm?
You find young people that can do that? Young realtors?
They're not all young. A lot of them are like around my age or like in their 30s.
And then they're
So
starting in real estate.
yeah, so our newest agent, he is a police officer
Okay.
and an agent. My other two, one of them, her husband's a firefighter. The other one, her husband is a sound producer.
Okay.
So, and then the other one we have, she's semi-retired. So it's, she's she's making supplemental income, but it's not like she needs a ton.
Got it.
But yeah, so most people like to be in this career, either your parents were in it, and so you're coming into that way, and that's how you're doing it, or you have a second income in the
Yeah.
house.
Got it. Okay, so you have two daughters,
Two daughters, yes.
business. You're running for Caneo Valley's
And
Parking,
yep.
right? You have a separate business as well. How do you fit it all into your day? Do you purposefully schedule out your time? Does it organically fall into place? When do you take time for yourself? How do you manage? I always say, like, I think balance is not real. I think that's shit to think that you can have work-life balance. It's never going to be perfect. So how do you juggle all of the different parts of your life?
Um, well, so in real estate, I've never had set hours. So my hours have always been all over the place. I mean, and it's a blessing and a curse, right? I've gone on, I think, one vacation, in the last 15 years I didn't work. So I'm always kind of working, and my kids, that's all they've ever known. I mean, I went back to work with my second one when she was 2 weeks old. I've
Oh,
never had paid time off in my life.
yeah.
I'm sick, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm still working. So for me, it's like I when Danny got into real estate, it was a lot easier because then he understood why I was always working.
Yeah.
Because before on vacations when I had to work, he didn't understand. And so that has really helped because now he's just like, yeah, take the call and do this, whatever. But so I don't if it's not my Google Calendar, it doesn't exist. So like everything goes into it. And then like moving into basically my mornings, I look at like if you master your morning, then the rest of your day can kind of flow to be whatever. So,
Okay.
the mornings are getting up with the kids, getting them ready, all of that stuff, taking them to school. Then I usually try to fit in like a half an hour workout. That's all I get in. Then it's like I decide if I'm showering or not that day. Most of the time I shower at night, let's be honest. Like I don't have time. Today I went and put on makeup and did this, right? Um, so I really like try to get in that like 30 to 45 minutes of for me, and then it's like go 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 for work.
I would imagine for you, you're the realtor, but everyone else is a huge transaction. So when they want to talk to you, they want to talk to you, right? At
Yeah.
least that's how I felt when I was buying or selling the house. Like if something came up, I really wanted to speak to my real estate agent. So you must have people contacting you with urgency all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. That's part of our job. It's what you
Yeah.
do.
Who picks
I
your kids
mean,
at school?
so I have a lot of support with grandparents. And then I do have I had some health issues with some of my grandparents. So they used to pick up for me basically 4 days a week, and then I would always pick up on Fridays.
Huh?
So this year I did hire a college girl who picks up for me twice a week.
Yeah.
And so she helps me out and then takes my kids to the barn because they ride horses.
Oh.
Um, and so then she brings, and it's honestly like I was so against it for so long because I wanted to be there for everything or have it be a family member.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really been kind of a lifesaver having just those ability to have those like full days and not be like, oh, okay, I'm going to pick them up from grandparents and take them to the barn. And then I'm trying to work from the barn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really like certain things like that where I have to, I try to delegate everything in my life. Like I have a full joint venture
Do you
company.
have a hard time releasing control? I've had to
No,
learn to delegate too. Oh,
I
good.
don't. There's no way I can do everything I do without delegating. There's certain things that
Oh,
like, I mean, I have a transaction coordinator for every single transaction I'm on. I use, my escrow officer is always the same when it's my listings. And my transaction coordinator is always the same. I pay her double what other people pay her because I value her on every single one of my transactions. And then I have a whole marketing company that is like a joint venture where I have a business manager there. We meet, every other week, and they have a full, I used to have assistants, and I don't know if you find this problem, but I found this problem being a very direct female that my assistants, I was either firing or they were leaving. And I was like, this doesn't work for me to have one person.
yeah.
So my business, like marketing company is multiple and it's one point of contact. So I have my business manager and I have my marketing coordinator. And so I just contact them and it's through email. And so I don't have to deal with if someone's sick, whatever. So basically anything and everything that I can delegate, I do. We started a real
to focus on what you need to focus on.
Yeah. So like I love being hands-on with my clients. I want my clients to, I'm showing them houses. I'm the one who they're contacting if they have questions through escrow. I don't want to hand them off. That's not the level of business I want to do. I don't care to sell 100 homes and then have nobody even be having me part of it.
Right.
So I'd rather sell less homes and be able to be there and be that person for them going through it, because it is a very emotional experience and it's in your top 5 of most stressful things that you deal with in life. So no, I want to be that person. And then we started a real estate syndication business, and in that I'm the numbers person. So a real estate syndication business is where we had bought an apartment building a year ago, and a lot of people were like, well, I want to buy with you. And so we were like, well, how can we do this? Because it's a lot of cash, right? Not everybody has that much cash, but some people were like, well, I got 50 grand, I got 100 grand, I got 25 grand. We're like, okay. So we hired a mentor and we have him for, it's like 40 calls or something. And so he has shown us. And so we closed on our first real estate syndication, and we have 8 investors in it with us. So we put our own money in it. We're the general managers and or general partners, and then they're limited partners, which we are also because we invest our own money in it. But this way, like, so when I was in commercial, I analyzed all the deals and would figure out the returns for them. So that's one thing I won't delegate. I like, Danny doesn't love numbers. I'm a total spreadsheet geek. Like if I could sit in a spreadsheet all day and like work numbers, I love it.
Oh,
Like, yeah, see, that's Danny. Danny's like, so I love to analyze a deal. It's like one of those things I just like have a total passion for. And so I will not delegate that. That is like all me. So, but I'll then make appointments for Danny to meet with investors and pitch the deal after we make the presentation and all that kind of stuff. So, but those like something like I'll delegate out to him,
yeah.
that part of it. But the other part where I'm like, I'm taking other people's money. I need to know 100% where every dollar is going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Opposite. My husband's a CPA. So when I brought him into the business, I'm like, every report we need to run, everything that has to do with money, I'm like, that is you. I'm going to focus on the therapeutic side of our business. Just you run those numbers and tell me the end result. Yeah.
Yeah. That's me. That's always been me. Like on the teams, like I help my new agents make budgets and understand, okay, if you want to net this amount, we work it backwards and here's how much you need to make, and this is how much this is going to cost. And you need to run it like a business. Otherwise you'll make money. And then you'll be like, where'd all my money go?
Yeah.
So
it's true. That's really cool. Do you think that when you and Danny got into business together, it was good for your marriage or hard on your marriage? Because when I tell people I work with my husband, their reaction's like, oh, you're with him all day long. I'm like, we're literally side by side in a room. And I think it like saved our marriage, being on the same page with a common goal and not going to work, having completely different existences, and then coming home. He would come home and talk about stuff in a CPA firm. It was like, are you still talking? Like I didn't understand that language. I didn't really care to. This has been so good for us. How did it impact your marriage?
Yeah, I always say I'm the worst fire wife ever because there's fire wives who are very supportive of their husbands and listen to the really hard calls and the things that they go on. And over the years, I have tried to be more open to those stories, but I am not a person who is into the gore and I live in my bubble, right? I live in my bubble where like the worst thing that is happening to people is that they're pissed off that they're not getting a closing cost credit or that there's, they have to replace something on a house, right? Like nobody's dying. He's literally going on call after call after call of people who are in car accidents, who are, dying, going into buildings, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to hear about the decapitation you saw
You know what?
like
That's
the
actually
day.
really wild to experience that. And then he comes home and someone's
Yeah.
freaking out and having a tragedy because of something in real estate. He must be like, shut up. Like, you have no
Yeah.
idea your problem is so small.
Well, it's funny because he says that the fire station is easy and that real estate is hard. He's like, if I wanted my life to be easy, I wouldn't do real estate. Because it's true, because people freak out through the transaction. I mean, rightfully so.
I mean,
It's
I've
a
been
big
there, yeah.
purchase. And but it is also like nobody's dying. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be okay in the end of this. Like just like let's take a moment. But
Your health.
yeah. So when he came into real estate with me, then we had a common thing to talk about. But I also didn't think about that now I have someone critiquing everything I do and not like, so because he's a very addictive personality, like he went full force, like learned all the scripts, all this stuff. We go on a listing presentation. He's like, you didn't say that the way it goes. And I'm like, I know. I've been doing this long enough. Like, I don't have to say it exactly like that. You have to learn it that way to internalize it, and then you will make it your own. Or he'll be like, I don't, and I'm just like, and then finally I was like, you know what? You need to just go on your own presentations and not come on mine. Like, so, but it does give us like a lot more to talk about. And then, the personal development side of it for sure, like with him really getting into that and wanting to create like for him, he wants to see what he can accomplish.
Yeah.
I mean, I've
I love
wanted to
the
do.
personal development side of it. I think there's no way to make progress in this world in any aspect of your life if you are not going to self-reflect and try to
Yeah.
improve who you are. There's just no way.
Yeah.
I think it's impossible. It's not a possibility.
Yeah, we have a saying in our house, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, yeah. But
You're not
self-reflection
trying.
is really hard and it's really painful a lot of the
Well,
time.
and it can be in whatever, but you need to continue to make progress.
You
So
have to.
as human beings, if we are not continuing to make progress, that is when you get depressed. That is when, it's like you have anxiety, all this stuff. It's like, but if you're working towards something, whatever it is, I mean, like, I
You know
mean,
what? That's so great I've never thought of it that way, but I've always struggled with depression and anxiety. And I would say, as I've implemented so many different aspects of self-care into my life, as not, oh, I'm going to go try this, or no, this is like my standard way of living now. The depression and anxiety, it still comes up, like, sure,
yeah,
like, I'll do that, but I have like better handle of it and a better way of approaching it. And it really has lessened because I think you have to self-reflect and progress, but you also have to find what lights you up and what
right.
makes you motivated to invest your time and your brain power and your emotional energy. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
counteractive.
there's a great quote that I used to listen to every day on the way into work, and it's by Earl Nightingale, and it talks about the secret of success and how, it's not about being successful, about, being a billionaire. It's about being successful in whatever it is you are choosing. So the mother who wants to be a mother, right? Who wants to be a stay-at-home mom. I think that's one of the hardest jobs ever. I couldn't do it.
Down. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. I think that, but those mothers who do and they embrace that and they do it well and they try their hardest for it, and are working towards, building that beautiful life for their children, like
Hmm.
that is success.
A
Just
hundred.
because I make more money than them does not mean that I am more successful than them.
No, 100%. I think it's so much. You were talking about ego earlier, and I think when we lead through ego, it's not gonna work.
No.
Getting in touch with your intuition and what feels good. I listen to a different podcast and they say, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I loved that. That resonated so much with me because if it doesn't feel so good, don't do it. But if that's going by your intuition. That's not choosing the easy path because you're going to make money faster or have success at a faster rate. It's really maybe choosing that longer, harder path, but knowing you feel like you're doing what you're meant to be doing, whether it's being a stay-at-home mom or running a business or working with your husband or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, the hardest part for people is that the judgment. And it's like, I love doing yoga because I am the least flexible person on earth. And I love the whole ideal of it that it is a practice.
Mm.
Okay. I am not ever going, I mean, maybe one day I'll be, really flexible and be a yogi. Um, if I really, but it's like, it's not about that. It's about the practice of it. The same with like doing a meditation. It's like, it's not about being able to clear your mind because, dear Lord, I've never been able to clear my mind
I
ever.
have to listen to meditations.
Yeah. And so it's like, you know what? But it's about just that simple, like, progression of, and steps back, right? If you don't do yoga for like a week, all of a sudden you like literally have lost all flexibility that you just had, the week before. So it's like, it's also, and being nice to ourselves.
It's so hard. It's funny, you said steps forward and step back. Literally before we got on this call, we got an email from our HR attorney, and it's something financial that we had to make a decision about in the business. And I said, it's like we take 3 steps forward and then there's like that step back. And it's, what are you going to do? We're going to learn and not do it again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's true. And you have to, I mean, we just canceled an escrow for a apartment building that we were looking to buy, and we'll lose money on it from the inspections and the appraisal and all that, like 5 grand. And it's like, it's still 5 grand, but I'd rather, like you said, like I'd rather it be a hell yes, I'm excited to do this, especially taking other people's money on this venture with me, than be like, well, I could make this work, but I'm not loving it.
It doesn't feel right. You have to trust that
Yes.
plan. Mm-hmm.
So it's a step back. Okay, so we lost some money on this. Okay, great. But you know what? I'd rather make sure that every transaction I do, I'm absolutely in love with. And it is,
Yeah.
something that I'm excited to move forward on.
I think it's really important to be able to say no to things. And this is what I'm currently working.
I'm horrible at that.
But when we say no, we open ourselves up to what we want to say yes to.
I am so 2019 was like, I'm like, yes, I want to do everything. Yes. Like,
Hmm.
and I then was like, got totally like volunteer burnout, was like, oh my God, what did I do? And
Hmm.
so I still, though, I mean, like I run the Thousand Oaks Chili Cook-Off, super random event for me to run for the last 5 years. I had 2 COVID years off, but like most people are like, why do you run a 7,500 person event? And I'm like, well, because I'm secretly hate myself on some level. And then also because, hey, I got it up to, from like the first year I ran it, we made like 38,000, then it was like 72. And I'm like, and this year I got up to $135,000
Wow.
net to charity. And I'm like, when else would I be able to do that?
And you know,
I
you said your why is seeing what you're able to do. So
yeah,
every year you get to see what you're able to do. And if that motivates you and that's
yeah,
your own little internal
yeah.
motivating factor, I mean, it's awesome and it's doing good, right?
Yeah.
It's doing
And then
good.
it's like the park and rec thing, right? Like I was asked 4 years ago, but my kids were really little and I was like, I can't like take on more. And so I was like, well, I would do it now. And then I started to get really uncomfortable, like super out of my comfort zone. I am not really huge into public speaking. Like I'm more a one-on-one person. Like I love to throw a party, but I don't care to be the center of attention. Like, and so I was like, all right, Marissa, okay, you're uncomfortable with this, you're doing it. And
Yeah.
so it literally was like, I mean, having anxiety, like all these things where I'm like, okay, here we go. Because, in my career, like I go on a listing presentation now, I'm not nervous anymore. Like I used to be, right? And, there's a certain level of being emotionally detached that I have accumulated where, like, if I don't get that listing, I'm bummed, but I'm not going to like ruin my whole day about it. So I was like, with this, I'm like, all right, here you go, sweetheart. Here's something new to like have you grow and make you feel uncomfortable and see, like, can you do it? Can you handle it?
And how
And
are you
so
now? What are you learning about yourself as you're going through it?
I think that it's the same, like, I think it's important to put ourselves out there. And even though I have had more anxiety than I have had in years, that you learn that, like, what's really going to happen?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? At the end of the day, what? Like, I'm all anxious about, like, people are like, oh, the election's in 11 days. Like, how are you doing? I'm like, I have no freaking clue. I'm like, I don't know. But like going through this process, I'm like, if I get it, I'll be super stoked. It'll be fun to do. I think it'll be great. I'm excited for the job. But if I don't get it, I'm like, I just like put myself out of my comfort zone for the last, like, since March,
Yeah.
and had to deal with people on higher levels that I don't normally talk to, and be around people who I may have thought would be pretty intimidating to be around. And now they're like friends. And so I think at the end of the day, I think that's what it is. It's like you're so anxious about the unknown, but you also have to look at, like I try to say to the kids, I'm like, if you're anxious, you have to understand that excitement is a very similar feeling. So are you really anxious, or are you also excited, but I think as adults, we feel like that's kind of like kid-like to say,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? But it's like,
It's both. And it's a
like, am
no.
I like, what's going to happen if I don't get it? Nothing.
And you know what? I bet at the end of it, however it goes, you're going to be able to then come down from that anxiety or excitement and have self-reflection where you're able to be like, okay, this is what I actually really learned and how I grew as a person, right? Like, and
Yes.
you'll be able to reflect back and look at that. I think it's awesome. I feel like everything we talked about, I could dive deeper into like a whole other episode and really sit down, and I love it. You're super inspiring. You do so much for the community.
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
it's awesome. For someone who's just starting out or deciding they want to kind of go out on their own and be an entrepreneur, or somebody who's in it right now and feeling like is way too hard, what are three pieces of advice or three things that you have learned in your journey that you would share?
Um, I think number one is to constantly be reading something and feeding your mind is number one, because your mindset is 90% of the game. So my favorite book, whether it's just like I didn't realize it was going to be actually a really great parenting book as well. I was reading it for more on the entrepreneur side, but it's Grit by Angela Duckworth. And if you haven't read it, it's absolutely phenomenal.
I haven't, so I'm going to.
It's so good. And I think it really, that book is just so pivotal in all of this, and like why people pursue and why people don't. And I think it does come down to that all of us struggle with, our inner battles of doing, but at the end of the day, like, if you just push through it,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see, like, oh, I'm still here, sitting here. Like,
And I'm
what's going to
capable of
really happen?
what I thought, right?
And then you build resiliency inside of you where you're like, okay, cool. Like, this is cool. Like, I'm still standing here.
Into a parenting book.
Yeah, it's so good. But yeah, so I really think it's really about your mindset and in feeding that every day. I mean, really, if you reading 10 minutes a day, or listening to something for 10 minutes a day, or doing, whatever, the 10 minutes a day of like reading your goals or writing out some affirmations for yourself and saying them to yourself. Just
Hmm.
any of those things are like, those are, I mean, it's not three, it's like one, but basically I think that that's like the most important thing, because if you do that for yourself, you can do anything.
I feel like I always have all those going. I always have my fun podcast to listen to. I have my motivational podcast to listen to, and there's always a book I'm listening to.
Yeah.
There's also a book by my bed. There's my journal. There's my meditations. I think they're all different things, and I think they're all equally important, and one doesn't replace the other. So
Yeah. And then you like put in a smut book in there so that, you don't take yourself too seriously either.
you have to have the good, fun stuff. Cause like some days I wake up like I need to hear something motivating. I need to be inspired.
Yeah.
My mindset. And some days I'm like, I can't be bothered. Like, let me just go have fun somewhere. Let me just get
Yeah.
lost in silliness and a good story or a good podcast and have
Or
that.
just listening to a song and getting super pumped up and getting into state is what we call it. Like, basically where you're just like, you could take on the world. And
Yeah.
that can be like, for me, it's like listening to, I love like different dance songs or hardcore rap songs or whatever, and just getting
Feeling that energy.
motivated. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I don't care to like listen to a book or to read something or what have you. I just need like that. Music is a big thing for me.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Music does not do it for me. I wish it, I see how it works for other people. And I was like, I wish, but after like a song or two, I'm like sensory overload. So
Yeah, no, you don't need to do it like for a long time. Like,
I'm like, oh, I don't know. My kids are
yeah.
super into music and they get in the car and they're like, Mom, can we turn on? I'm like, oh my God, you don't want silence? But I'm like, but if
Well,
to be fighting in the back, sure, I'll turn on the music if that makes you guys quiet. Right?
yeah.
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 Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking time out of your day to do this with me.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was
Really,
super
really
fun.
it's been awesome. I've learned a lot.
Thank you. Me too. I appreciate it.